So today's session, while not an exhaustive training session, it's very much the objective is to give you an awareness and to give you some insight into what's required when running your year-end on the AX solution. So just before we get started, I have a couple of little housekeeping pieces for you. We will have Gail presenting the actual year-end process and the solution specific to AX for us. But at the end of that session, we'll have the opportunity to answer your questions. So at any time during the session, you can enter a question into the questions box, and we will get to that at the end of the session. So if you have a question, straight away put it into the questions box there in your webinar piece on the right-hand side of your screen. We are definitely recording this session for you, so while you can certainly scribble as many notes as you like as Gail's going through the presentation, you don't have to try and remember or capture everything. We'll record this session for you and then upload it to our PA YouTube channel for you. That way you can either watch again or send around internally within your organisation for someone else to look at. So let's get straight into it. I, of course, am the picture on the left-hand side, the not so good-looking picture on the left-hand side, but our real presenter today is Gail. Gail is one of our senior Dynamics AX consultants with many years' experience implementing AX solutions and solutions in the wider Microsoft community. So AX is going to take us through the year-end process and then also be able to answer some questions for us at the end. So please sit back and relax, and Gail, I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks, Michael. So welcome, everybody. Hope you're all having a good day so far. So I just wanted to say, first thing is that today's webinar is going to be, I am going to be using AX 2012 R3. So if you do see any features that I'm using that you're not sure if they are available, if you're on one of the older versions of AX, please just contact your account manager and they'll contact us and we can let you know whether you're able to do that or not. So some important facts about the year-end process in AX is that it can be run multiple times. So you don't need to worry if you know you're going to get audit adjustments a couple of months down the line, and you don't need to wait to run your year-end. You can still run it as at the end of June, and then you can rerun it after you've made your audit adjustments, which is my second point there. Another point is that users can be logged into AX when you run the year-end process, so you don't need to get everybody out. We do recommend that you have your normal backups, so most clients do have a backup schedule just in case, but the year-end procedure is quite robust. Even if you do make a mistake, you can just rerun it and it will it will actually just remove the first year-end rollover and then replace it with the new correct one. Okay, so what does the year-end process do? So basically, we're running the year-end process so that your profit and loss amounts can go off to the retained earnings and that your opening balances for the new year are created for your balance sheet accounts. Right, so month-end procedures. So these are the procedures that you would do every month, and these will need to be completed if your year-end is July to June. These will need to be completed for June before you do your year-end close. So you need to make sure that all your journals are posted for your relevant submodules and in your general ledger. You need to also do your normal reconciliations that you would do by printing your aged trial balances and trial balances. Make sure that everything balances. If you do use foreign exchange, you will need to do your normal Forex revaluations on your creditors, debtors, and any other general ledger accounts that you may need to revalue. If you do have inventory, there is an inventory close procedure that we won't cover today, but it is something that you would normally do every month anyways. So you will need to do that inventory close before the year end. Just one note, when you run an inventory close, it will close off the inventory module. So once you've actually run that, you are not able to go back into inventory and make any adjustments for that month. After you've done all of that, you'll do your normal consolidations and eliminations in your consolidation entities. Very important thing to remember with the consolidations is that they only pick up your operating values from your entities. They will not pick up the year-end transactions. So you'll see when we get to the year-end, you would actually go through and do the year-end in your entities, your normal operating entities, and you will need to do a year-end rollover in your consolidation entity. Right, so some year-end tasks. So what I'll do is most probably just read through the tasks and then we'll go into AX and I'll show you each task instead of skipping back and forward between the slideshow and AX. So the first thing you would need to do is create a new financial year. For most sites, when we implement, especially if you've got a newer version of AX, we normally do create quite a few years going forward. But I'll still go through that procedure so you can see how you create that. Then you would go and place your periods on hold so that nobody accidentally posts back into your year that you want to close. You can also go and create a new journal name for audit adjustments with its own numbering sequence. So what that allows you to do is when you do eventually get your audit adjustments in, that they're really easy to identify because they have their own numbering sequence, their own journal name. So just for reporting down the line, it's much easier to see those adjustments. And those adjustments you just do using a normal general journal. After that, you'll go through and you'll print all your financial statements. So generally, you'd use your management reporter or FRX, or if you're using Board or ClickView. So wherever you normally print out your profit and loss and balance sheet, you would go through and print those out. Some of these tasks you don't have to do in the specific order. It's just the order that I've chosen. So you may already have your financial reports at the beginning. That's fine. Right, so another check that we do is just to make sure that you have got the correct account type on your accounts. So that's really important because if you do have a profit and loss account that you've accidentally chosen asset as the account type, if you don't fix that, that will actually take a balance brought forward. Then we'll have a look at the general ledger parameters that actually drive the year-end process and what your different options are there and the options that we recommend. Then I'll show you the screen to do the year-end close. It's the same screen in the normal entities and in the consolidation entity. I've just put it in 2 steps because you do need to go and do your consolidation year-end as well. And then at the end of it all, you can rerun your financial statements and compare and make sure everything's still the same. Right, so I'm going to pop into AX. As I said, this is AX 2012 R3, and this is just sample data that I'm using for this demonstration. Right, so the first thing on our list was to go and make sure that we actually do have the financial year created for our new financial year. So I'm going to go into, it's all in general ledger. I'm going into setup and into my financial calendars. And this is my current financial calendar. So you'll see I actually already have a 2016. But if I wish to create a new financial year, you'll notice I actually have to click on the calendar to have new financial year available. If you're on the year, it won't be available. So if you don't have a heart attack, if you don't see that, just click one up. Okay, so new financial year, it will already give you the start of the financial year based on the end of the prior one. So this particular company that I'm in is running January to December. It uses a bit of logic and gives you the next financial year name and length of periods, and you just click create, and off it goes and creates your new financial year. So this, in 2012, this is not the screen where you control where the periods are open or not. This is purely just for the setup. So now we're going to go through and make sure that we've closed the periods for the prior year. So for that, I'm going to go under Ledger. In the ledger as well, this is where you see the financial calendar that's applicable to this particular company, because you do have the ability within AX to have different financial calendars for different entities. So we do have a particular client who runs a weekly financial calendar in one entity and then just the normal monthly one in another. So if I go up to Ledger Calendar, this will now show me my fiscal calendar, and there's my years. So we'll just look at 2015, and there you can see the status. So one thing with the status, you'll notice that the opening and closing periods, generally we have them on hold. These are system generated periods. We don't generally see a need to have a 13th period. A lot of people ask, oh, do you need a 13th period? And I think it was more based in where you weren't able to post into an old year, but now that we can, and we can identify those transactions separately, we tend to normally just stick with the 12 periods. But AX will create its own little closing period. It looks like a period 13, but it's a system generated period. So we have a couple of statuses, and if you do have AX, you will be quite aware of these statuses, but I'll just run through them quickly. So open just means that we can post in that period. We've got on hold, which means that we cannot post, but we can reopen that period. And then you have closed, and once you've marked a period as closed, you are not able to open that period again. So we generally don't suggest you placing periods on hold, especially for the prior financial year, especially while you're waiting for adjustments. But once you've gone a couple of years on, you could go through maybe 2 years back and close that, because you know you're not going to ever affect those figures. So you can place the entire period on hold, or you could say, well, I want to leave period 12 open for ledger, but I don't want anybody from sales or from debtors coming in and posting anything, so I can just say none, or you can allow access to a particular user group. So I would just say none for customers and none for vendors and go through like that. Generally, I'm not sure if a lot of people use the module, but generally clients just come through and place the period on hold. So we do want to make sure that's all on hold so that nobody can post. Okay, so another task that it's not compulsory, it's just if you do want your audit adjustments to be a little bit separate from the rest of your journals, that we would recommend you creating a journal name. So to create, I'll just show you where, if you're not familiar with the terminology, when you actually go in to do a journal, on the very first screen, that's the name. So when you create a new journal, you need to select what journal you want to create. So this is what we're going to set up. We're going to set up a new one of these. So under journal names, if I'm also showing you things that you're really not confident of doing in the system yourself, you're always more than welcome to contact us and we can help you. So I do a new journal name, and we'll just call it audit. Call it audit adjustments, and they're just daily journals, and it wants a voucher series. The voucher series is the actual number sequence that it's going to use for these journals and these vouchers. So I would want to create a new one. So in AX 2012, I know in the older versions you go to table, something like that, but in the new ones we just go to view details, which I'm actually opening up the number sequence setup. So I do a new number sequence, and I'm just going to call it audit. Now, one thing with journal names, especially general ledger ones, we do not share them over the system. They are company specific, so you will need to create, it can have the same name, it doesn't have to be a unique name, so they can all say audit and audit adjustments, but you will have one for each company. And the way we say which company it's relevant to is under the scope. We choose a company. So I'll just select the company that we're working in. And under segments is where we actually choose what the number sequence is going to look like. So this is its default. It likes to put company there. We normally just remove that. And then the constant, I can call it AA for audit adjustment, or whatever you want to call it. And then how many numbers do you want at the end? So I might just go for 6. So that's what my voucher series will look like. I'll just say AA and then the number. So for number sequences, we do need to make them continuous. So in other words, they increment by 1 each time you use them. And then this largest number, it just needs to have as many numbers here as you have in your alphanumeric section. Otherwise, you'll get an error. So at the moment, it's got 9. So I do need to take off 3 of those 9s. And that's my number sequence created. With AX 2012, we don't save. If you just close the window, it will save that. Right, so now I should have my audit number voucher series there. And you can choose whether the amounts include GST or not. Most probably not for audit adjustments. And that is my journal name. So now if I had to go and do adjustments or put in audit adjustments, and as I said, this might happen after the fact, so you've already run your year-end close, you go back into your ledger and your financial periods and you open up period 12 for journals, and then you go through and you create your journal. With general ledger journals, you can assign workflows. So if you want a workflow on your audit adjustments, in other words, they need to be approved before they're posted, you can certainly set that up. You'll notice that I've got a workflow here, and I think that's linked to this WF workflow general journal. So I haven't assigned a workflow to this particular one, but you certainly are able to do that. So I go through and find my audit. So it says my audit adjustments, and I'll just show you if I go into lines. There you see my numbering sequence, my AA coming through. Okay. Right, I'm not going to run through printing the actual financial statements, but you would need to go and do that as you normally would every month. So another one of the tasks that I've suggested is checking your account type on the main accounts. So I've already set up some filters. I did cheat a little bit. So having a look at this chart of accounts that I'm working with, my range from my 100,000s to the end of the 300,000s on my balance sheet accounts. So I've got main account types like asset, go down a bit, I've got liabilities, and I've got equity as my different types. This chart of account also has totals. With the newer versions, we don't normally use total accounts. And then when I get to my 400,000 to the end, I've got revenue and expenses. So my general profit and loss type things. So I've actually set up 2 filters. And the way you do this is you actually just filter using your grid initially, and then once you've filtered it how you want, then you can just come and save it. So I've already done that. So I have a balance sheet check. So what I've said is I've put in my account range, which are my balance sheet accounts, and I've said show me any account which doesn't have an account type of asset, liability. In this case, I have to put in my total, and then equity. So if I had an account within that range that had a different account type, it would show up on my list. So my balance sheet, I don't have any accounts, so that's looking good. And I'm going to go through to my P&L check. And so the same, I've used the same logic. I've just got my P&L account range and said, show me where the account type is not revenue or profit or loss or expense. And that's actually come up with 3 accounts. So I've got an error account, which is balance sheet, and that one should be fine as balance sheet. Or I can make a P&L, it just depends on yourself, what you want to do there. And then I've got a couple of others which are coming through as asset and liability. So you would just need to have a look at those accounts and decide whether that main account type is correct or not. If it is correct, that's fine. If not, I'm just going to double click on the account, and I would just go in and edit it and change the main account type to what it should be. Another feature, and this is the feature that I'm not 100% sure when it came in with the older versions of AX, but you are able to have an opening account. So what the opening account allows you to do is, if the account needs to be of type balance sheet, so where it's going to have a balance brought forward into the new year. So if you want the balance on that particular account to be brought forward into an opening balance of a different account, so you may have restructured your chart of accounts slightly and you don't have a need for a particular balance sheet account anymore, so you just want that balance to go into a new account, or you may have structured your accounts. I know we have a particular client who actually has got in their fixed assets, they've got an account called beginning balance depreciation. So they want, for the accumulated depreciation, so they want that to go to the accumulated depreciation for the current year to go to that account in the year-end close. So if you just specify an opening account on that particular account, when you do the year-end close, that's where the balance will go. It will not go to the same account number. So you are able to do that. Okay, so once we're happy that our accounts are all looking good and we've got all our opening accounts, if we need that feature all set up, we can go and have a look at the parameters around the year end. So that's under our general ledger parameters, and right at the bottom we have financial year close. So as I said, this is a sample company, but generally we just have the first 4 parameters that we need to have a look at. So the first one is, the option is delete close of year transactions during transfer. So what that actually means is, if you have that ticked, if you repeat your year-end close, it will remove the existing one that's there and will create a brand new one for you. So you'll only have the one transaction. If you don't tick it, if you repeat your year-end close, it will not remove the one that's there, and it will only create entries for any net adjustments. So by not ticking it, you'll actually end up with quite a few transactions. So we normally tick that just to create a nice clean environment, especially if you think you might make a mistake, then that's the way to go. The second option is create closing transactions during transfer. It's a little bit misleading, because you think, oh, if you don't tick that, it's not going to actually take my balances forward and do my retained earnings. That's not the case. What it actually does is creates like a separate journal, and that can get quite confusing. We've seen it at clients previously where it actually, when you start reporting on the old period, your figures are either duplicated or go back to 0. So we don't recommend that you use that. It creates more confusion than it's worth. The next one is set financial year status to closed. We never tick that. So if you do tick that, when you run your year-end close, it will close that year and you won't be able to go back and post any adjustments. So we really don't want to tick that. And the last option we have is voucher number must be filled in. So you can assign a separate voucher number series without having to actually go create it in number sequences just for your year-end close. And I'll show you, so we do tick that and I'll show you where it comes into play. So generally we like to tick the first one and the last one, and the other two we will remain unchecked. Right, so the actual procedure is under periodic, opening transactions. So you'll notice it shows you your general ledger parameters at the top. You cannot change them here. You would have to go back to the parameters to update them if you wanted to change it. So it just gives you that final little check just to make sure that it is all set up correctly. So I'm happy with that. End date, so that's the end date of your financial year that you're closing off. So this one was January to December, so I'll just choose December. So for balance accounts, do you want the closing balance to go to opening? So that's what you want. The other option is to reset them, so reset them to 0. So if you, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can if you wish. So generally we just leave it closing to open. The main account for transfer, the year-end result, that's your retained earnings account. And here's that voucher number. So I can actually call this, it can be alphanumeric, and it doesn't increment because you only have one voucher for your year-end close. So this will be the name for the whole entry. So I could say FY2015 year-end, so that when I'm looking at those entries, I know exactly what they are. And then your last option is, do you want to print the report, which I do recommend that you do. So you're going to print off, and that will show you obviously the profit and loss movement to retained earnings and everything. We do have a financial dimensions tab. Generally we don't recommend that you play with this. This is just saying to what detail do you want the balance sheet to go over to. So if you untick any of them, your balances won't be down to that particular dimension. So we generally just leave everything marked. You may not have as many dimensions as this, but we normally don't recommend that you play with that. And then if you wanted to batch your year end, you could certainly do that. And that's all you do. You just tick that and OK, and that will run the year end close for you. As mentioned, you would need to go do that in all your normal operating entities, and you would have to go and do it in your consolidation entities as well. So once you've done all of that, you'll just rerun your financial statements and just check that everything still aligns itself. So that is the end of the presentation. So I might hand over to Michael and we can go through some of the questions.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Gail. Really appreciate that. We've got some questions that have already come through. So as you were presenting there, we've had a couple of questions come through. So I'll do the asking. I think that's the smartest thing, Gail, and you do the answering. So first question, and I won't read out people's names, so please don't be concerned about putting another question up there if you do want to ask something. So the first question, Gail, is there a separate close process for the sub-modules?
Yep, so in AX we don't have separate processes for the sub-modules. Besides the inventory where you need to do the inventory close, we don't need to do anything, so it's only the general ledger that gets affected in the year end.
Okay, brilliant. We have another question here regarding reversing journals between year ends. So can a reversing journal, if posted in June, to reverse in the new financial year? So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
Posting a reversing
Yep.
journal.
So with reversing journals, they will just work as per normal in AX. So you would need to have the 2 periods open, because when you post the reversing journal, it posts both entries simultaneously. So just keeping in mind that whatever the entry is that you posted in the prior financial year, you would run that year-end process on it, and it would close that part off to retained earnings or balance brought forward, and then the reversing side that's in your new financial year would just be like a normal journal, just the opposite of it. So definitely, but that's just your normal journal functionality and not a particular year-end process.
Okay, excellent. We've got another question here. So it relates to period 13 and final adjustments. So can you use period...
Yeah, so that period 13 that's system generated, no, you can't access that on your own. That's accessed by the year-end process itself. Actually, there is a closing sheet functionality, so I'll just check. I think Craig's on the call. I just want to see if he's listening.
Yes, I am. Apologies if you hear a young lady in the background talking with them at the airport, but it's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, in terms of period 13, if you want to use that, then you need to do that through the closing sheet function, which will effectively give you a trial balance, let you enter adjustments to come back to a final closing trial balance, and the entries that it generates from that, it will put into period 13 as a transaction for you, but you can't hit it directly yourself.
Yeah. So we generally don't use the closing sheet, but if you wanted adjustments for whatever reason in that period 13, then that's what you need to do.
All right, excellent. So just
yeah, the user, the person who's asked those questions, I know them quite well, so just email me if you have any other questions on that. They know who they are.
Was that a bit of, we know who you are, you know who
we know you are.
All right, look, just wrapping up there's just a couple of things I wanted to mention before we close out. Firstly, we appreciate that Gail's gone through the year-end process here and given you a fair amount of detail in a short period of time. For some people, that might have shown you how easy it is and therefore how comfortable you'd be doing it yourself. For others, it might have made you even more concerned and more worried about how to actually do the process yourself. So please don't think that you need to do this alone. If you do need our help, we can happily do that for you. And if that's the case, if you just reach out to your account manager and let them know that you'd like to engage with a consultant, and we can have a consultant help you go through that process. If you're not sure who your account manager is, we can actually just send through some information to the contact details that are on your screen at the moment. And again, remember that this session is recorded for you, so you will get a copy of these slides come through into your inbox. So just before we finish off, at the very, very end of the session, once you exit from the session, there will be a short survey and a couple of questions that will pop up on your screen. Certainly one of those is if you'd like help, if you'd like to engage with a consultant with regard to your year end, let us know and we can just contact you on the back of that. One other question that will be in that little survey is just a request there for you to put down any other webinar topics that you might like to see us cover for you as one of our AX customers. So please take the opportunity there to note down any topics of interest, anything that you'd like to get us to present for you in a future webinar. We'll happily take that through and add those into our schedule moving forward. So just finally, just want to say thank you to Gail for taking us through that year-end process for AX. As I mentioned, Gail was able to cover a lot of information in a reasonably short period of time. We have recorded the session, and you will get a copy of that. And a short survey will pop up for you as you exit the webinar today. So on that note, thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate you taking the time out of your afternoon. Good luck with your year end. If it's not about luck, you want to leave it to, then don't hesitate to reach out and contact us and get some help from us. So thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye for now.